Hi, my name is Mark and welcome to the channel. Today's video is something that was requested of me in the comments, and that is to discuss my current projects on the needles and also the projects I'd like to make in the coming months. So we're going to dig through my Ravelry favorites, look at some of my stash yarn, and hopefully together we can decide how I should use my yarn and what projects I'll focus on in the coming months. Let's get into it. In this calendar year, I've turned into a fairly monogamous knitter, and my current project on the needles is the Halibut sweater from Caitlin Hunter. So looking at that in front of me, I think it's adorable. This is something that was in my Ravelry favorites for probably a year, maybe over a year, and I just wasn't sure if I was ready to bite the bullet and commit to a fish sweater, but I really like it. I think the Halibut are beautifully charted, beautifully patterned, and this has been a joy to make. I have another Caitlin Hunter sweater. Let me grab it, actually. This is my first Caitlin Hunter sweater that I worked. This is the Auster sweater, and I've talked about this in other videos. I really loved making this sweater. It doesn't show up super well in this color, and also on camera, but I loved the textured knit. It was a really fun pattern to follow and pretty easy to memorize, so I could work the sections without having to stare at my chart or stare at the row by row instructions, which I really appreciate. I do a lot of my knitting on airplanes or in rehearsals, so I'm often talking to people or there are constant interruptions. So I like a pattern that I can absorb as much as possible so that I'm less likely to make mistakes when I'm not able to be glued to a pattern. So anyway, this green sweater was my first Caitlin Hunter that I worked. Really enjoyed it. I've recommended it to a lot of people. And then this Halibut sweater was equally fun to work on. I'm finishing it up currently on the sleeves, and then I will pick up my provisional cast on and finish the collar. But the body of this is finished. It has the colorwork yoke, and then the rest of the sweater is just stockinette. I have my ribbing at the hem here, and as I mentioned, I am currently on a sleeve. So just 2 sleeves to finish, and then I will do my collar, and it'll be time to block. I think this is really cute. Definitely fishy, a little quirky, but I think I'm gonna enjoy wearing it. My most recent finished project is the Modern Love sweater from the Bean Knits, and this is something that I made for my husband. The color work for the yoke comes from Why Not Fibers, that's Kat in Michigan, and she has come to Cleveland before for some trunk shows at my local shop around the table in Shaker. So I picked that up as a kit, and I paired the colors with a shade from Woolstock that I already had in my stash. I'm going to save most of the details of this sweater for another video. I have a lot of footage filmed of the cast on, the color work portion, and then the finishing, the blocking and troubleshooting for a couple of things with the pattern. So that's Modern Love from the Bean Knits. Technically, I have 1 or 2 other projects that are on the needles, but out of sight, out of mind. They're things that I might come back to at some point to finish. One of them I think I'm going to repurpose and frog, so we're not going to talk about those in this video. If I get to them in the future, I'll definitely talk about them and they will come back onto the docket of current projects. So let's take a look at my Ravelry favorites, and I'd love to hear some advice and some voting from you about which patterns I should go for and how I should best use some of my stash yarn. Here we go. I've said before that the face-to-face filming and kind of narrating as I go makes me really uncomfortable, or really nervous, I should say. So doing my best to dive in today and narrate, discuss what I'm talking about in real time instead of going through with a voiceover. So thanks for your grace, thanks for your patience if I'm a little bit fumbly. So here I am in my Ravelry, and I'm going to go to my notebook to my favorites. Now that I'm here, I have everything that's 182 items that I previously added to my favorites, and there was a recommendation from my Ravelry video that I posted a week ago or a couple weeks ago. Someone recommended that I make bundles and organize my favorites by type of garment or by season, or however I want to make use of the favorites tab in general. So thank you for that recommendation. So I've created my first bundle today, and I'll show you how I did that. So first I want to get rid of this dog sweater. I don't even have a dog. And let's say I want to add one of these sweaters to my favorites. Let's say I'm going to add the halibut. That's what I just showed. So I go to edit, and again, we're already in my favorites on Ravelry. Once I select edit, I can choose here a drop-down menu, and that is to add this to the group, the bundle that I've created in my favorites, which was 2024 wish list. If I don't want to add to that, I can click and I can start to type something new. So I'll say 2024 finished objects, because this is almost finished. Then I'll click create, and now I can see that this item, this pattern, is added to a bundle. Then I could make a comment. I haven't finished the sweater yet, so I haven't uploaded my finished object to Ravelry, but I can make the note and say, working on sleeves with the date, March 14th. And then I could add tags if I wanted to. I'm going to save changes, and now that sweater is still in my general favorites, but it also belongs to a bundle. The Ingrid Summer sweater is another work in progress, one that I didn't mention. So if I go to that, I could click the drop-down menu, and I'll see the two bundles that I've previously created. If I wanted to make another bundle, I could. So let's make one. It's going to say abandon projects. Don't forget me. And I'll create that. Comments, I'll say body is halfway done, and that's as of January of this calendar year. And I'll save that. So why are we making bundles? Why is it helpful? If I go back to the top of my favorites page, I'll see bundles here, and if I click that, it'll take me to another page where it organizes all of the bundles that I've started to gather. If I click on wish list, it will take me to the group of patterns that I've added to my wish list so far. And then I guess I can just go back to get to the other bundles. So if I keep adding things to my abandoned projects bundle, then in the future, if I'm ready to start another project or ready to finish some projects, I could go to this bundle and really easily see all of the things that I have in progress, even if they are out of sight, out of mind physically. So for this video, I wanted to show you some patterns that I'm considering for my upcoming projects, and I'm also going to show you the yarn that I've already purchased that I'm dreaming of pairing with these projects. So instead of scrolling through my almost 200 favorites in Ravelry, I thought I would add them to a bundle so that we can sift through them really easily. So here's my 2024 wish list, and right now I just have 7 patterns there. This year, I'm not knitting quite as rapidly or quite as frequently as I did last year. I'm spending more time filming videos, learning how to edit, and doing other types of work in my life, so I don't have quite as much time to be knitting with so many strict deadlines. Last year, I tried to do a sweater each month, and I ended up doing a sweater almost every 2 weeks with other projects thrown in, and that was great because now I have a ton of sweaters, but it was also stressful because I gave myself so many deadlines, and in a way that pushes me to work on my projects, but sometimes it takes away from other activities or other work that I should be doing. So I'm giving myself 7 patterns here, and we'll talk about them. I may not end up committing to all of these, I may change my mind later, but I'd love to hear a little bit of feedback about which patterns and which yarns might best suit each other and best suit me. So let's start with this pattern. This is, I'm not sure how to say it, Enniskillen by Courtney Kelley. And I saw this a couple of days ago in my local yarn shop around the table yarns, and I think it's really pretty. I've talked in other videos about how I like vests. I think I like vests. I don't like v-necks. I'm wearing my v-neck today just to give it a try. And I don't hate it. I think it's okay. I like it with the collared shirt. I don't know. I still like the idea of vests because I think it's nice to have things without sleeves. It's nice to have garments that feel more breathable. I think I'm more likely to wear them into the spring or start wearing them in the fall. And it's that time of year in Cleveland. So we have some days that are pretty pleasant and then days that are still chilly or even frigid. And it's just on the mind that I think I'd like to make a few more vests. So I like the look of this, and I really love that it's an example of Kelborn Woolen's Cricket. I really like Cricket. I've bought it previously with other projects in mind, and I just haven't committed to completing those projects or even really starting those projects. I have several skeins of Cricket already in my stash, and I would only need to buy 1 or 2 skeins to pair with for this pattern. I also have an idea in mind about adapting one of the charts in the pattern, so I think this would be a fun opportunity to play around with the pattern and make it even more personalized. So we'll see, and if I follow through with that, I'll talk about it in another video. For the Cricket vest, I think I like this gray as a background color a little bit more than the light gray cream neutral of the example photo. This is medium gray 36, and I just think it's a better contrast with my skin. I always say that I look like a cadaver pulled from the river, which I kind of do. I'm very translucent, and then I'm very pink or red on the other side. So anyway, I like this gray as a possible base color. And then this is the shade used for the largest motif. It's not showing up super clearly on camera. It's a green, a sort of medium green, and it's color Ocean 426. So I might keep that as the main motif color, but if not, I would use this navy blue. I think this blue is beautiful. It's color Navy 412. There, that camera might show these colors a little bit better. And there's the green. And I'll hold it up with the gray too. I think these are really beautiful. And then one of the colors I already had in my stash is the rust. I really like this rust color. I was going to use it for a slip over vest previously, but I just didn't love it with the pattern. The Cricket yarn is thick and thin. It's very rustic. And so that variety in the strand really works well with certain patterns, and for other things, I think can look a little bit frumpy. So again, I was excited to see this sample as part of the trunk show in my local shop because it shows me exactly what the garment looks like knit with this yarn. So I like the look of it. I think the rustic feel fits the pattern well, And so I'm a little bit more confident to jump into this pattern. So here are my 4 colors together. Again, this would be the background color. The primary motif would be either the green or the navy. And then the rust and either the navy or the rust with the green would be the much smaller motif that runs between the larger portions. So this is like a 90%, maybe 80 to 90% certainty that I would like to jump in and do this pattern. So if you have any crazy ideas, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I think I'm jumping in with this one for sure. So that's project number 1 on the wish list. The next pattern we'll look at is The Bee's Knees by Thea Colman. I really like this pattern from what I can see. I think it's really beautiful, and I like it in this color. I think this bright and cheery of a yellow doesn't quite suit me, but I have a color that I found in Scout from Kelborn Woolens that I think will suit this pretty well. I have 1 skein of it in my stash, and I'm waiting on the remainder of the sweater quantity to arrive at my local shop. It's something that's been on back order from the company. I purchased it back in December, so when it arrives, this is something I will enjoy jumping into. Here's the 1 skein I have of that color. You can see it's a more muted, kind of mustard yellow, maybe like a Dijon. I think it's pretty, and I think it will show the texture of that cabled pattern really beautifully. So that's next up on the projects to come. The next project possibility comes from my excess of alpaca, a really good problem to have. I have a lot of this shade of alpaca left over from my field cardigan, and then this navy alpaca I was able to get at a really good price, so I thought I could potentially pair these 2 together for some sort of 2-color colorwork sweater. Both of these yarns come from the company Amano. They are Eco Puna, and it's 100% baby alpaca, and these, well, this line comes in natural shades of the animals, and this is a branch of the same brand that is dyed, obviously. Can you imagine? Purple blue alpaca. Anyway, I think these are really beautiful. They feel ridiculously good. They're DK weight and extremely soft. I know with alpaca, there's a great possibility that whatever I make will grow. So I think I will take that into consideration and either make a smaller size, not giving myself so much ease, or just go with a pattern that I think would look good if it gets to be a bit slouchy and oversized. So here are the colors. Next I'll show you the pattern I'm thinking of, and if you have ideas of 2-color stranded patterns that you think would work well with alpaca in a DK weight, I'd love to hear them. I really love to do Ravelry searches. If I have yarn in mind, like the alpaca, I'll daydream about what I'd like. In this case, I thought 2-color stranded color work, at least for the yoke or a portion of the sweater. And then I'll get on Ravelry. I usually save it for close to bedtime, and I really look forward to it. I start the search on my phone, I narrow down a lot of the parameters, and then I start sifting through all of the pattern results, and as I find ones I like, I save them to my favorites. So this pattern is a result of one of those searches. It's the Kerr sweater by Rebecca Clow. And I thought it would look really pretty with those 2 shades of alpaca. I was thinking I would do the navy as the background color of the body, and then use the natural sort of oatmeal color as the color work. It also looks like you can decide how many times you repeat the chart. In this picture, it looks like they have at least 2 or 3 different versions of the chart length. I think I like the longer repeat but it's nice to know that it's something I could play by ear as I work the pattern. So that's my idea. That's my jumping off point for the alpaca sweater quantity that I have. But again, if you have any 2-color stranded projects you've done out of a DK weight or that you've seen, let me know if you have any good recommendations and I'll consider it. None of these patterns are things that I'm jumping into immediately. I'll probably start them in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 months, and I just want to narrow down how I'm using my stash and what I have planned for this upcoming season. I'll take a moment while I'm here on my bundled favorites page to show you another nice thing you can do when you are keeping track of your favorites. So if I go to the sweater we just looked at, as I hover over it, I'm given a few options. I could delete it from my favorites. I could do this, which is, selecting a new cover photo for the item. Fun. Or I can click edit. Once I go to edit, that's where I could add it to a bundle, like I showed before. If I want to remove it from the bundle, this is where I can do that. I can hit the trash can next to the bundle it belongs to. And then I can give comments. So I've written here alpaca because that's my idea. And this helps me keep track of why I saved the pattern and what I was planning to do with it in the first place. So I could come back and change that. I'll add a detail. I'll say navy for the background and oat for the stranded pattern. I could also add tags, but I think I'm good for now. So I'll save those changes. And I'm given a little preview of that text under each pattern. So once I come to the bundle, I could pretty swiftly glance and remind myself of what I was planning to do with all of these patterns. All right, let's look at this sweater next. So I'm dreaming of doing a sort of fisherman sweater using a cream or white color of wool stock. This is another pattern from Thea Colman. I've worked a couple of her patterns. The one I'm wearing is one of her patterns. It's Ghost in the Orchard, and I really like her patterns. I think her specialty is texture or cables. So if I see a Thea Colman pattern with cables and texture, I can trust it. I know that she has done all the work to make sure the math works out, and it's going to be an enjoyable process of making that garment. So I've seen this sweater pop up a few times, and I like it. Part of me isn't sold on the asymmetry of the cables, but I think I like it. I keep coming back to it whenever I see it, and I think I like it for this purpose, for a white or a cream basic fisherman's sweater. I also like the neckline. I like this sort of unfinished look. I like that for this. I can see myself pulling this sweater over a collared shirt and feeling cozy, feeling a little bit relaxed. It's not so finished or so formal. I also like the amount of cables. Some of the fisherman sweaters I've looked at are sort of cabled to death, and they look so bulky. But this design, I think, contains itself in the columns, and it looks like something that I would want to wear often. So I'm pretty sold on this sweater for my white wool stock. For reference, here's the wool stock. This is color 1303 Highland Fleece. And if you haven't heard me say it already, I'm obsessed with wool stock. I wish that I were the heir to the Blue Sky Fibers fortune so that I could just pick any Blue Sky Fibers yarn that I wanted to use. I love it. So this is my plan for that Baby Cocktails Thea Colman pattern. I do worry that the sweater might get really dirty, So we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we reach it. Next, let's take a look at the Auster pullover. This is a Brooklyn tweed pattern, and it's another one that I have looked at over and over, but I've never made it, and I'll show you why. First of all, what a beautiful picture. I love this model, and I really love the styling of the sweater. I've asked people, if this sweater were not modeled on this man, would I like it as much? I don't know. But I do think it's a really pretty sweater. So tell me, am I crazy? Is the sweater beautiful? Do you know of other similar cable patterns that you like better? Let me know. Another reason I really like this pattern and this example is because this color is so similar to Woolstock Wild Thyme, which I have a sweater quantity of. So, I don't know. The reason I don't love this pattern and the reason I'm not sold on it is the neckline. So if I go to the projects tab and we look at some examples of the sweater, I'll point out what I mean. And this is no hate to the people making it or the people modeling it. I think a lot of these are beautiful examples of the sweater. However, the neckline just seems wide. It seems wide and unplanned. This gentleman has a collared shirt, a prominent collar, popped out, but you can still see space, sort of dead space, where the shirt has to fill in before the neckline of the sweater joins in. Also, I feel like here, the hem doesn't match the rest of the proportions of the sweater. Maybe if the sweater were slightly shorter, that would fix itself, but maybe not. Here's another good example. This neckline is very open, and I've talked about this before. I'm a larger man. I normally make a 2X or 3X size in a pattern, and I find really often that the neck openings, the finished dimension of the collar, is enormous. It's like a huge scoop neck situation, even when the models and the staging of the garment shows that it really is a sort of crew neck. So I've started knitting my sweaters where I cast on at the body and then work the top down, come back, pick up the stitches, or use a provisional cast on to then knit the neckline, knit the collar, just so I can really control how far it comes in and end up with a crew neck. Because I'll make a sweater that I love and I'll be disappointed at the end because the collar, the opening, is enormous, and it just drives me crazy because if something is advertised as a crew neck, I want it to come in, I want to be able to wear it with a t-shirt and not have to plan for a collared shirt or something to come in to cover sometimes inches of space between my neck and the start of the sweater. So, I get fiery about it. I get wound up because it's frustrating, especially if you start a sweater top down. You really can't do much to change it. Sometimes I go in and I pick up at the finished collar edge and knit more, but then I have an extra ridge and it's just frustrating. So, in the model picture, let's go back to that, you can see there is quite a bit of space. If his neck ends here and the sweater doesn't start there until there, I feel like that's got to be 3 inches of space. He has this lovely collared shirt on, which disguises how wide the neck opening is. And that's fine. I'd be happy to wear a collared shirt with it, but I don't want to be required to wear a certain type of shirt to make the sweater look good. I want the sweater to look good no matter how I wear it. So that's my concern with this pattern. I could potentially go in and add more ribbing, add more to the collar, And sometimes I do that and it solves it, but other times there's a bigger issue with the shaping and the short rows for that neck opening. I will point out that this sweater is made bottom up, so it's not quite as big of an issue. If I get to the end of the project and find that the neck opening is really big, I could just keep working the collar until I'm happy with it. But again, it could be a bigger issue. So let me know, is this a nice pattern? Do you like the look of it? And is this the best use of my wild time? Or should I look for another pattern? And if so, do you have recommendations? For reference, here's a skein of that wild time. And again, I think colors are showing up better on the front-facing camera. I think this is such a beautiful colorway. I love the dimension of it. I love the earthiness. And again, I love blue sky fibers. I really love the feel of the yarn. I love the way it blocks out and blooms. So I want to do something with this. If not that pattern, I'll pick a different one. All right, the next consideration for future projects is 3 sweater quantities of wool stock. So those are in front of me. I've got this blue, which is color 1321 Loon Lake. They have another blue that's more like a denim blue. This one is a little bit tealy. It's really pretty blue, but it's a little bit more whimsical and bright compared to their denim option. It's not called denim, but it's a sort of denim blue. And then I've got this charcoal. It is color 1300 cast iron. Just a good gray, medium to dark gray. And then the last sweater quantity I have is in color 1302 Gravel Road. I really like this neutral. I think this color works well on me. It's dark enough and it has enough body that I think it can stand up next to my cadaver skin. So I've got these 3 colors here of wool stock. These 2 more neutral wool stocks I've talked before about using for a petite knit slipover. It's for the slipover that I lost, tragically. I want to recreate it. It was in this color, so I'll probably do it in the same color, and I also might use the charcoal. However, if I find a better pattern or a different pattern that I want to make more, either one of these sweater quantities can go to that. So if you have ideas, let me know. And then, of course, I've got the blue. So let's look at the patterns that I'm considering. This is the biggest place I'd love your vote and your input. Let's start here with the Mount Auburn cardigan. I've seen this pattern floating around quite a bit, and again, I'm always drawn to it, and I will admit, part of the reason I'm drawn to it is the redheaded model. Let's be honest. So I like the look of this. I really like the styling of it here with this sort of dark academic look. It's very tempting. So I don't know. I don't know if it would look as good on a larger frame or if it would look quite as good in an everyday context. So let me know. Is this a nice sweater or am I just distracted? I also don't know if this would work well in the blue color, my Loon Lake from Woolstock. They make a really beautiful cranberry color, so I could do something like this in a color that's more similar to this example, or I could abandon this pattern completely. So let's look at a couple other worsted weight patterns that I'm really considering. So out of my favorites we go, out of the bundles, we're going to go back to the regular favorites. How do I get there? I just use the back button. Now that I'm there in my favorites, I'm going to search for worsted, because all of those wool stock skeins are worsted weight. And I'm just going to click through the other patterns I'm considering, or that have drawn my attention, and let me know if you think any of these would look particularly good in the blue color that I have on hand. This is a Thea Colman pattern. Part of me feels like this would end up being fairly bulky with the width of these cable charts, but it might be perfect. I like how busy the sweater is. So that's one option. Next up, the Diona pullover. I thought this was really pretty. It's definitely busy between the completely interwoven cable chart and then it looks like a 2x2 ribbed sleeve, but very beautiful. I saved this. I don't think I love this pattern. Why did I save this? I don't know. It's lovely. If you designed this or you've made this, it's lovely, but it's not for me, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Again, this one that we looked at before, I think this is beautiful. So I think this is definitely my choice for my cream color. And then I get into older favorites. Here's something I like. This Duster Pitch by Emily Greene. I think this is cool. It's so hard when I look at patterns not to replicate them in a similar color. Something about seeing it in that shade and being attracted to it, it's hard not to choose the exact same color. Maybe it's not hard for you. Maybe you're really good at choosing your own colors and going off to an unknown result. But for me, I'm always really tempted to do things based on their example photos. Okay. This is a sweater I made for my husband several years ago. I like it. I love Norah Gaughan. If you're watching this, I love you. I love your patterns. I think you're amazing. And one thing I really love about this is the modern look of the cables. They're very rugged, very angular. And this was a nice pattern to do. I was really happy with the fit and the overall finished look. But I think the bulk of these cables might be a little bit too much for my frame. But I would recommend this over and over. So here's where you come into play. Let me know what you think would work out best for that Loon Lake blue color of wool stock. If you have a pattern that you've seen me show that looks best for it, or if you have ideas of your own. If you have patterns, recommendations of things in your favorites, or things you've made, please send them my way. You can drop the link in the comments below, or you can send me a message via Instagram or Ravelry, and I'd love to see your ideas. So the last thing I'll show from my wish list of upcoming projects is the Baa-ble hat. This was featured for Shetland Wool Week 2015, and I saw one of these at the Christmas tree farm where my family goes in Connecticut. I saw someone wearing the hat, and they had a really cute dog, so we met the dog, we met the owner, and we asked her about the hat. She said her mother had made it for her, and we just thought it was really cute. Since then, I've noticed these hats all over the place. When I was in Tucson a couple of weeks ago, I saw a lady walking around the neighborhood wearing one of these hats. So I know they're popular. I know all sorts of people have made them, but I think they're so cute. And it's worsted weight, so it's something that I think I'll use wool stock scraps for, because I use wool stock all the time. I have probably 8 different colors, at least 20 to 50 grams of each of those colors. So I think I have enough to make a few different versions of this hat with those scraps. So that's the end of my projected patterns for the coming months. Of course, I might have other things hop into the queue. I might see other garments in person that inspire me, or I might find newly published things that run across my Ravelry feed. Let me see if I can find a cat before I film the outro. We have Gus. Gus is the sweetest cat. He's actually not the sweetest cat we have. I think Big Cat is the most loving. Well, you love us so much and we love you so much. It's hard to say. Big Cat is the most clingy. I think Gus is the most personable. Right? Right. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was fun to knit along to, crochet along to, watch as you're cleaning, listen to as you're doing whatever you do, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for engaging in the comments, leaving a like, or subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see what you're working on, and I'd love to hear your ideas. Happy knitting, happy crocheting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!